I've been training calisthenics for many years now, and I've managed to build quite a substantial collection of calisthenics gear. Some of it was a great investment because I use it all the time. Some of it was a waste of money because I've used it only once or twice. In this video, I'd like to share my experience, which might be helpful if you're thinking about building your own home gym. I am aware of the fact that everyone starts from a different level, has different training goals and training style, so whether something is going to be useful or not is rather subjective. However, I'm going to pick the gear that, in my opinion, is the best way to spend money for an average man. The order of mention is going to reflect my recommendation on the order of purchase, with the first one being the most useful and worth spending your money on. The most important thing is going to be something that allows you to hang. There are no good ways of training pulling movements without hanging, so it is essential. There are many different kinds, and which one is the best for you depends on your housing situation. The simplest and the cheapest bar looks like this. There are screws at both ends which expand it as you rotate it. It's very easy to set up, but has a couple of issues. You have to have a door frame that makes it possible to install the bar. I've seen door frames which were too thin for this element, and the bar wouldn't hold good enough. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is how sturdy is the door frame and the wall. If you want the bar to hold really well, you need to screw it in really strong. This creates massive forces that can easily crack thinner walls or damage the door frame. On the other hand, if the bar isn't screwed in properly, it won't hold your weight, and you're risking taking damage. Another popular type of the door frame bar looks like this. To mount it properly, you need a door frame that sticks out of the wall. There has to be a ledge large enough to support the bar. My door frame is an example of one that wouldn't work well with this kind of a pull-up bar. If you can drill in the walls of your room, a bar like this might be your best option. It's going to be very stable and should be inexpensive, however it has one flaw. These bars are usually positioned quite close to the wall, and it's not possible to train things like front lever or back lever, because there's not enough space for your head. These bars can also be mounted to the ceiling, which resolves the no space for the head issue. I do have a bar that can be mounted to the wall, however it's a hybrid solution that allows you to mount it to the vertical poles or trees if you want to train outside. It's called Pull-Up and Dip Station, and I did a review of it a while back. You can check it out here. It's not the cheapest option out there, but if you'd like to have this exact function, then it may be worth checking out. Another type of pull-up bar that you can get are all the freestanding pull-up bars and stations. One popular brand that I know and have used is called Pull-Up Mate. Are you alright, mate? You wanna do some pull-ups, mate? It was quite unstable and felt flimsy, so I wouldn't recommend getting a bar like this unless there's really no other option. Freestanding stations are usually pretty expensive, take up a lot of space, and aren't very stable unless they're very heavy, so consider it only as a last resort. If you have a garden, I highly recommend building a bar like this by yourself. You need to put some work in, but the product you get for the money invested is not comparable with anything else. I do live in a very cheap country, so take that into consideration, but I paid something like $100 in total for the steel, welding, paint and concrete for the footings. It's not as hassle-free as buying something off the internet, but it's definitely the biggest bang for your buck. Okay, that's enough about the pull-up bars. Let's move on. Next, I'm gonna talk about the single best training-related investment that you can make. Gymnastic rings. You can get a pair for as little as $50, and considering all the possibilities they give you, nothing comes even close to being as good of a purchase. No matter if you're a complete beginner or an advanced athlete, you can use rings to train pretty much your whole body. If you want to work out at home, you can hang them on the pull-up bar, although the best option is to drill a couple of hooks into the ceiling. If you mount the rings this way, you don't even need a pull-up bar. This minimalistic setup is sufficient to be the only thing in your home gym, as it allows you to train your whole body.
As for which rings to choose, just go for the ones made out of wood, because they offer a better grip than the plastic ones. There's a link to the ones I recommend in the description, but the brand shouldn't really matter that much. The rings vary in thickness, the most popular being 30 and 32 mm thick. I've used both of them and there's not much difference, but getting the 30 mm ones should be the best choice for most of you. Gymnastic rings inspired a number of suspension systems, with TRX being the most popular one. Although they offer some of functionality of rings and even slightly improve on it, I would never choose suspension trainer over a pair of rings. TRX is also way overpriced, costing on average 3 times more than the rings. I made a video comparing the two if you're interested, but the gist of it is, rings are better. The next calisthenics accessory that's worth your money are parallettes. There are many different types and some make more sense than others. For example, these small plastic ones are a waste of money in my opinion. All they offer is a different grip, but unless you have some kind of a wrist injury, you should be able to do everything with your hands on the floor. The grip is usually uncomfortable because it's too thin. It's the most noticeable when doing handstands. They're not very stable either. If you want to get parallettes that actually give you some additional features, you should go for higher ones like these. You can do all the same exercises as with the small ones, but they have extra features. You can do handstand push-ups in full range, go really deep when doing push-ups, and if you place them on top of a couple of chairs, you can even do dips. I really recommend these parallettes from Pull Up and Dip, as it's an extremely well-made product. The wooden grips feel great and are sized perfectly. Before I had used them, I thought they might have issues with stability because they seem quite high for this amount of support. As it turns out, I have trouble tipping them over even if I try to do it, so no worries there. I'm really happy whenever I get the chance to promote a great product, and this is definitely one of those times. There are even higher parallel bars that allow you to do dips with your knees bent, but I've never felt the need to get them. They don't offer any unique features apart from doing dips, but as I just showed you, you can easily work around that with the lower bars. The next type of product that I think is worth your money are resistance bands. Just like the rings, they are very useful for both beginners and the more advanced. They work best for making the exercises easier and are a great help in learning the basics such as pull-ups or dips, as well as the more advanced skills. I covered this topic in one of my videos if you want to have a look. The bands are also very useful for warming up. The possibilities are countless, limited only by your creativity. The most useful sizes for the majority of people will be the purple and the black band. These are the must-haves of training calisthenics at home. I don't think you can regret buying any of them because they are useful in so many ways. If you have all of them, there's almost nothing that you can't do. In the beginning, I thought about recommending a weight vest, but I'm not so sure anymore. I have used it a lot in the past, but the truth is that if you want to train weighted calisthenics, sooner or later you're gonna need a weight belt like this one and some real weights. I guess the vest is fine if you're starting out and you use only smaller weights, but training with more than 10 or 15 kilograms attached to you this way gets very uncomfortable. Attaching the weight at the hips is much more convenient and you don't get super hot after training for 10 minutes as in the vest. So if you feel like training with added weights, I recommend getting a belt over a vest. Of course, just because I didn't put something on my list doesn't mean that it's a waste of money. I have a bunch of gear which is helpful, but in a very narrow use case. Take these cross trainers for example. They are great if you want to learn the iron cross, extremely useful for that. But if you get bored of training it or just simply change your goals, you will never use them for anything else and they could be considered a waste of money. It's not wide enough in here. If you have some gear related questions, just leave them in the comments below. That's it for this video, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Boo.